And let's welcome inside our studio for the second time, making, I believe, his third appearance on the show. Second here. Once was out of the country.
Right. That's right.
Very
international.
You were our first Finnish connection. Mike Heika joining the show, along with, of course, Craig Ludwig, and our brand new producer, Elijah Smith, who is not new just for our show. Thanks for being here, Elijah, and keeping us afloat. There he is.
First thing out of Heika's mouth when he gets off the elevator is, can't figure out how to get here. And he's like, well, normally you get paid for these kind of shows.
Yeah.
I've got to pay for parking to come on your show. So you take that up with Ben. But as you see, Mike,
right.
We have Bud Light as a sponsor.
I like that.
We have Wendy's as a sponsor.
I like that.
I mean, this is getting to be big time around here.
That's
and we
good.
get free, what are they called?
Frosties.
We get free Frosties.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Frosties in a little bit.
Speaking of Frosty, is it kind of frosty around the Dallas Stars organization lately?
You know, it's
what
funny.
Segue,
that's a segue.
That is a pro segue.
It was an interesting decision. And like what I wrote in my column is Pete had the best regular season record in the last 3 years and took the team to 3 consecutive Western Conference finals. Final?
Western Conference final.
Right.
It's only one final.
I know. It's semantics.
I know it is, very much so.
But there's a Eastern Conference final. But this point being...
I always said finals before, too.
Yeah.
I did.
Point being, something must have been wrong. And so the fact that Jim said that he interviewed all the players on their exit interviews and then this is a decision he came up with tells you something must have been wrong. Now, all of that said, they're keeping all the other coaches. So if there was a...
Isn't that up to the new guy?
One would think yes, unless the new guy is Jim Montgomery. You know, it's a guy who...
Well, it's not going to be him.
No, I'm saying, though, but the process of Jim Montgomery coming in is, yes, you're a young coach. I'm going to give you your coaching
and
staff.
Jim Nill actually said as much on Friday when he did his media availability, kind of making the point, because your former colleague, Tim Kalishaw, asked a couple questions, and Jim stopped his answer and said, wait, I want to go back to your first question. We feel that we have such an experienced coaching staff that it does not necessitate an experienced head coach being hired.
Correct.
As far as NHL experience.
Yes.
Then I don't know if you read Tim's piece, his most recent one. He said that he basically mentioned that somebody inside the organization told him they're not looking for a retread or a coach with significant NHL experience.
Correct. I read that, and so that's good. I haven't.
Isn't this all pointing towards one guy?
I think, I think it's the right choice.
To me, it's pointing to one guy.
So,
I mean, if you're... well, I don't know if it's breaking news. I mean, everybody's looking at me. I know nothing, but I'm going... I don't understand it. If you're keeping all the guys and you're saying that you're going to keep the guys, it's obviously guys that you're familiar with and you have interactions with. So, and it's not one of those guys, apparently.
Correct. Although it could be.
Well,
I mean, if you really wanted to do it, Naz, I think, would be a great head coach. And you bring in Neil Graham as an assistant to get him experience at the NHL level. Are we allowed to say Neil Graham?
You're allowed to say, and you don't have to say the kid from Duke. You can actually say his name. Mavericks joke right there.
There you go. But I think, if you look at Neil, obviously we're all looking at Neil Graham's history, 14 years in the organization, 7 years in Idaho, 7 years in Texas. He's coached several of these players and at important times in their career. I mean, what Thomas Harley did down there, and then that may have been more the defensive assistants than it was Neil Graham, but I think Neil Graham played a huge role in helping Thomas Harley get to where he is right now. And then you look at Ottinger, you look at Robertson, and just go down the list of players who played down there.
Bischel even this year.
Yeah, Bischel, yeah.
I have a hunch that if Neil Graham is promoted, it's not to be head coach right away.
It could be.
Because you remember they did that with Derek Laxdell. When he was
doing associate coaches then?
Assistant or, one of those kind of things.
So it's kind of like not having a captain?
No. They will have a head coach.
Oh, I thought you said he wouldn't be the head coach.
Well,
so
I'm not
he's
sure.
saying, what if you promoted Elaine? Now, how many outside head coaches would come in and take that job knowing the next guy is waiting right there?
Exactly.
So then you almost have to promote from within.
Correct.
And it could be Spotter. It could be
here's
Misha. I mean,
well, doesn't that mean if let's just say you're Elaine, right? Yeah. And let's say that that's the case. Don't you have a expiration date on you then?
Yes. But you'd have to agree to that.
But do you say...
And then as soon as an assistant becomes a head coach, He's not sticking around the organization. We already know that.
But
'Cause he
here's
ain't
the
going
thing.
backwards.
No.
You make a great point, Luds, because
That's what I'm here
it's
for.
always dicey when you take that job, right? It's the guy that takes the promotion mid-season.
Yep.
Drew Bannister does this with St. Louis. You're almost feeling like your clock is already ticking to be expired. But how do you say no to a chance to be a head coach?
Here's an example I'll give you. Rick Bowness. He waited 20 years to become a head coach. It dropped into his lap. He could have easily said no, or let's go do something else. But he took it. He was there for a year and a half.
Yep, couple of
And
seasons.
then he became a head coach in Winnipeg. So it can be this next step up to someplace else if you really want to be a head coach. I think Rick Bowness really wanted to be a head coach and had waited 20 years for that opportunity. So I don't know. It's an interesting. I don't know what you would do.
You mentioned Misha Donskov. I think he's also a very well thought of. I mean, you saw he was on the Hockey Canada staff. You mentioned Steve Spott. Jeff Merrick posted something that came across my Twitter feed yesterday, and it's part of his show. I believe it's called The Sheet for Daily Faceoff, and he did about a 7 or 8 minute clip.
What are you talking about again?
Talk about Jeff Merrick.
No, you're talking about Steve Spott?
Yes.
Are you talking about Spotter?
I am. Oh, you just wanted to see if Elijah would pop up the Steve Spott laser eyes graphic or not. Yeah,
Hey.
he's testing the new guy.
I'm
He's
testing
like,
the
I don't
new
even
guy.
know where it is. Merrick made an interesting, I don't know.
There he is. There we go.
I don't know, Hikes, if it had to have been intentional, because he said he was making this statement and talking about the Game 5 post game and then the end of season media availability. And he said, as we all know, that ultimately led to the demise of Pete DeBoer. And then he added, and also Steve Spott.
Mm-hmm. That's
Now,
the thought process that they're
we
attached at
haven't
the hip.
heard anything about it.
No,
But-
I asked, and he said the assistants are coming back.
I remember when you
now,
asked,
again,
and he
he may
answered that.
change that, or maybe Spotter will change it. But
Could it be that the new hire changes that? The guy they want comes
Potentially,
in
I
and says,
guess.
"I want so and so and
well,
so." That
do you believe that Pete's going to get another head coaching job?
Oh, of
I
course.
do. So then the question becomes: does Spotter want to stay here with the new head coach, or does he want to go with his best buddy that he's been with for the last 12, 15 years?
And maybe it's down to I'm with Pete, except for I have a contract, so I'm going to honor that. If you say you're no longer needed here, they still get paid then, right? Whereas if you say I'm walking out,
Correct.
then
Yeah,
that
you
probably
get
breaks
nothing.
that deal. So
Well, and again, I think it's.
I don't know anything. I'm just speculating.
Yeah,
on
we're
this.
all speculating here. But I'm saying from a coaching standpoint, again, do you feel you need that money, or do you feel you want to be happy? So then can you be happy here, or would you be happier with wherever Pete goes? And like I said, they have been separated. And, and Spotter will tell you that, we're it's not like we've coached together every year for our whole lives.
No, but it's been a while now.
It's been a while.
It
been
was
San Jose, Vegas, and here.
and Dallas. That's a better part of a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, and again, everything I know, I think they're both going to live in Vegas when they're done. So they'll see plenty of each other as they go. I think they spend
Is Vegas their off-season spot?
I
know
believe
Pete's
they
got a
are.
place up in Ontario.
Pete does.
They all
go-
have the cottage place,
They
right?
all have the cottage place, and Pete has a nice boat. And
I know
likes
that's
cars.
literally describing what Luds is going to be doing in about 3 weeks. Is up on the water, up
I'm
in
still
the
going to
north.
be thinking about this conversation in 3 weeks.
Do you have are you on the water
Yeah.
up in Wisconsin?
We're on a chain of 28 lakes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Largest freshwater chain in the world. They say. I don't believe it, but that's what they say.
Interesting.
I don't know.
We have
Nice
the
place
chain-
to spend
we
the
have
summer.
The chain of lakes in Traverse City with what's it is? I can't remember the name, but it's one of the biggest, like one of the deepest inland lakes in the U.S.
Is it
I
like
think
one of the
600
big
feet.
lakes?
No, it's inland. Torch Lake.
Torch
Wow,
Lake.
600 feet.
I
That's a
believe
very
that's
deep
an
We have a
lake.
inland
Torch Lake.
Yeah.
It's a casino. Torch
There
Lake
you go.
Casino.
We have casinos in Michigan too.
Torch Lake Casino.
If only we could
Oh,
get
yeah.
one for Dallas Stars.
We're
hockey.
surrounded by casinos.
I want to go back to DeBoer for a minute
Okay.
before we talk about who
You're the only
replaces
one
him.
that wants to go back to DeBoer, apparently.
There's two things. One, I want to say this. Pete's an excellent coach.
My God.
He's got an incredible resume. He wins. It's not about him not being a good coach. It's to me more about his expiration date or the answers that he had were for the Stars solutions when he was hired, or the problems. And then new problems have come up, and maybe it's time for somebody else who has a different set of solutions to be in. The question I have to you guys is, was that decision of does Pete stay or not for his final year for Jim Nill and for Tom Ghilardi, was it on the fence? Was it, obviously the Ottinger stuff kind of, I think, knocked it over, but were they already leaning in that direction? Or do you think if they had lost game 5 and he hadn't said the things about Ottinger and then doubled down in the end of season media, even though there's other stuff building up, which Jim basically said, would that have not pushed him over the edge?
It would have depended on the exit interviews, in my opinion.
Yep.
Because Jim said, and we have to take him at his word, I told these players to be honest with me. And, again, they're players who aren't even going to be here. So let's say a Matt Duchene. I don't think he has any problem being honest with Jim, saying, yeah, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. The other interesting thing, and this is just how life goes, he didn't give Lindy a contract extension.
That's right.
So Lindy's last year, they're coming off
after a really good year,
106-point season.
Yep.
And he didn't get the contract extension, and he was not the same coach. He was mad. And so then the question becomes, if Pete doesn't get a contract extension, is he mad?
Right.
And
does it change how he coaches his 4th year?
And what's your window here? How long do you have to win a Stanley Cup? And if you're going to mess this next year up, how much of a punch in the gut is that to whatever your window
you see
might
that
be?
as a potential setback?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there were other elements in there. It would have depended on what the players told Jim. And then 2, did he want to give him a 2 or 3 year contract extension? Did the owner say, yeah, I'm fine with that. Go ahead and spend my money.
Yeah.
Because, that's what it would have been doing. It would have been, we're going to bring this back. We're going to give him a 2-year contract extension. And then if we're mad at the end of the year, we're going to have to pay 2 years off and not just 1. Or just assume that he's going to get another job.
How many coaches that are established coaches never or coached that last year without a contract? Very
Not
few.
many. Well, Hitch was fine with it. He was the rare one. But I do remember when Lindy did it, because Lindy was not that guy. Lindy believed that you needed to make him a priority.
It seems like the statement from ownership to management is basically saying, we're not sure if we want you or not. Then.
Well, I think that's fair. I think a lot of it might be, and this is, again, it's funny that Pete says to the players, hey, you got to earn your spot. You got to earn your minute. And so then if a owner says to him, hey, you got to earn your contract extension,
right.
He doesn't really think that's a good plan. So we'll see. And again, we're all just assuming here that these are, but we're searching for explanations, and that might be one of them.
Okay.
I can just see the wheels turning.
Yeah,
and I'm always
again,
not sure which direction you're going to take.
I'm never sure what direction I'm going. But the point is like Owen gave me this project the other day.
Okay.
And he just said, hey, why don't you pull some things about penalty killing in this series versus, the other series?
Something we want
to
to talk about on the show this
something
week.
we want to talk about. So I started looking yesterday. And then 4 hours later, I'm still looking. And I'm getting more pissed off by the minute. Because I'm going, there was no difference. And this wasn't just penalty killing. There was no difference. And I said this. When they came, I gave these guys credit. When they came down this stretch of the year and lost 7 or 8 games in a row. And I kept going, this isn't like a light switch. You don't just turn it on and you're going to automatically be different when you get into the series. And then I said after one game, I said, I was wrong.
Yeah, they turned it on.
They turned it. Well, you know what? When I looked yesterday, they didn't turn anything because Jake was unbelievable. Okay? The holes that I see in, I'm talking, again, D-zone, things like that, were there. I told Owen this morning, I'm looking at this, I'm going, look at this. 3 guys changing at the same time going off the ice when somebody's coming down the ice. And you change. So I'm to go back to what you originally asked about.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Nill's been around since God's a Cowboy, right? I mean, he's been around for a long time. Janko's been, but he's surrounded by, that's what those people are supposed to do. I just think that they saw things in the first round, and you got through the first round.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how we got it, we got there. I think there were things that you got through the second round because the other dude couldn't play on the road. And there were, and again, Jake was unbelievable. And then when Rantanen started getting shut down a little bit, he was obviously good. It pokes its head again.
Yep.
So I personally think that there were some other things prior to that, and then everything that happened in that last thing was kind of like the top of it. I mean, it obviously when those kind of things, because for Pete to talk about at the end of it, to talk about the record of Jake and all this other kind of stuff, that didn't just come to him in that interview.
We all silly like the mayor.